The night on Guadalcanal does not fall, it suffocates, for a 19-year-old Marine huddled in a foxhole on the perimeter. The darkness is a physical weight, thick with humidity and the rotting sweet smell of the jungle. He cannot see his hand in front of his face, but he can hear. A twig snaps, the rustle of kunai grass, the faint, rhythmic breathing of men moving where no men should be. His grip tightens on the walnut stock of his weapon. It is not the precision M1 Garand nor the heavy bar. It is a Winchester Model 12 short, brutal, and ugly in the beautiful way only a weapon of survival can be. Suddenly, the jungle erupts. A scream of Tenohika Banzai pierces the air, followed by the terrifying thud of boots sprinting across the mud. Shadows detach themselves from the tree line, a wave of bayonets rushing the wire. The Marine does not aim. There is no time, and in this pitch black, no point. He holds the trigger down and pumps the slide. Once, twice, 3 times. Boom clack boom clack boom. A wall of OO buckshot, 9 heavy lead pellets per shell, shreds the darkness. The first attacker dissolves in mid-stride. The second crumples. The perfect repeater spits fire as fast as the Marine's arm can cycle the action, turning a calculated Japanese infiltration into a slaughter. In the morning, the bodies will be piled just feet from the foxhole, a testament to the weapon that changed the calculus of close-quarters combat in the Pacific. This was the Winchester Model 12 in its element. While artillery and air power won the islands, it was the shotgun that owned the night. The right tool for the wrong war. To understand the Model 12's dominance, one must first understand the nightmare of the Pacific theater. Unlike the open fields of Europe where rifle range mattered, the Pacific was a war of inches. The Japanese Imperial Army IJA did not fight like the Germans. They were masters of terrain, camouflage, and psychological warfare. Their doctrine relied heavily on Sishin spiritual power to overcome material inferiority, manifesting in tactics designed to terrify and overrun American positions, night infiltrations, silent raids, and the infamous Banzai charge, in the dense foliage of the Solomon Islands, or the volcanic ash of Iwo Jima. A standard infantry rifle was often a liability. A bolt-action Springfield was too slow. An M1 Garand was too long and heavy for point-blank wrestling matches in the mud. The submachine guns, like the Thompson, were effective but heavy, and fired pistol-caliber rounds that sometimes failed to stop a drug-fueled or fanatical charging enemy instantly. The Marines needed a weapon that required zero precision to be lethal, something that could clear a bunker, sweep a trail, or stop a charging soldier dead in his tracks with a single pull of the trigger. They found it in the shotgun, a weapon class the United States had pioneered for war in the trenches of 1917. Now perfected for the jungles of 1942, the perfect repeater. The Winchester Model 1897 trench gun had earned a fearsome reputation in World War I, but it was an exposed hammer design, a relic of the 19th century. Its successor, the Winchester Model 12, was a sleeker, more modern beast. Designed by T.C. Johnson, it was the first widely successful internal hammer pump-action shotgun. Mechanically, the Model 12 was a marvel of machined steel. It was streamlined, protecting the action from the incessant sand and grit of the islands better than its predecessor. But what made it a weapon of mass destruction in the hands of a Marine was a feature that modern safety standards have since eliminated: the lack of a trigger disconnector in a modern pump shotgun. You must pull the trigger, rack the slide, release the trigger, and pull it again to fire the next shot. The Model 12 and the Model 97 possessed a capability known as slam firing. If a Marine held the trigger down, the weapon would fire the instant the slide locked forward. There was no pause, no hesitation. The rate of fire was limited only by how violently the operator could pump the forend. A skilled user could empty the 6-round tube magazine in under 2 seconds. For a Japanese squad rushing a position, this meant facing a man who was not firing a single projectile but a continuous, devastating stream of lead, brass versus paper, the logistics of survival. The Model 12's journey to dominance was not without hurdles. In the early days of the Guadalcanal campaign, Marines faced a critical issue: ammunition. The standard civilian shotgun shells issued by the military were made of paper hulls with brass bases. In the steaming tropics, where it rained every day and humidity hovered near 100%, paper shells were a disaster. They absorbed moisture, swelling inside the magazine tubes and chambers. A swollen shell meant a jammed gun, and in a Banzai charge, a jammed gun meant death. Marines, ever resourceful, scrambled for solutions. They carried shells in improvised waterproof pouches or the rubberized bags meant for gas masks. But the real solution came from logistics: the introduction of the all-brass M19 shotgun shell. These shells were impervious to water. They fed smoothly through the Model 12's action, regardless of the mud or rain. Once the brass shells became standard issue, the Model 12 went from a temperamental specialist tool to the most reliable close-range anchor in the squad. The breaker of Banzai. The Banzai charge, a massed frontal assault, was the IJA's ultimate tactical gamble. It was designed to overwhelm American defensive lines through sheer weight of numbers and ferocity. Against a line of riflemen, it often worked. The psychological shock of hundreds of screaming soldiers emerging from the smoke could cause green troops to panic. The Model 12 was the antidote to this panic. When a Marine racked the slide of a Model 12, it created a distinct mechanical clack-clack sound noise that became universally recognized. But it was the ballistics that mattered. The standard 0 buckshot load contained 9 lead pellets, each roughly the diameter of a .32 caliber bullet. At close range under 20 yards, the spread of these pellets was roughly the size of a dinner plate. A single trigger pull delivered 9 distinct wound channels simultaneously. The kinetic energy transfer was massive. A soldier hit by a .306 rifle round might, if the bullet passed through soft tissue, continue running on adrenaline for a few seconds. A soldier hit by a blast of .00 buckshot was physically knocked back, his momentum arrested by the sheer physics of the impact. During the battle for Saipan, reports surfaced of Japanese officers urging their troops to avoid positions held by the trench guns. The shotgun did not just kill, it mutilated, it removed limbs and erased faces. It turned the spiritual glory of the bonsai charge into a gruesome, futile meat grinder. For the Marine facing the charge, the shotgun offered a psychological anchor. I don't need to be perfect, I just need to pump. The point man's best friend while the machine gunners held the defensive lines, the Model 12 found another critical role. The offensive patrol. Jungle warfare was a game of ambush. Japanese snipers tied themselves to treetops. Spider holes concealed machine gun nests. Moving through the jungle required a point man, the first soldier in the column. The one whose job was to trip the ambush so the rest of the squad could survive. The point man lived a life of extreme tension. He had to react instantly to targets appearing at ranges of less than 10 feet. The Model 12 became the coveted weapon for this role. In the dim light of the jungle floor, sights were useless. The Model 12, with its natural pointability, acted as an extension of the Marine's eyes. If a bush moved, he fired. The spread of the shot meant he was likely to hit the sniper hiding in the foliage or the ambush party lying prone. The Model 12 trench gun configuration featured a perforated steel heat shield over the barrel and a lug for the M1917 bayonet. This was crucial. In the frantic melee of a jungle ambush, the shotgun could run dry. The ability to instantly transition to a 17-inch blade turned the empty shotgun into a terrifying spear. There are numerous accounts of Marines using the heat shield to grab the scorching hot barrel during hand-to-hand combat, using the weapon as a club or pike when ammunition was exhausted. Okinawa, the caves, and the end. By 1945, the war had moved to the doorstep of Japan. Okinawa was a hellscape of limestone ridges, caves, and tombs. The Japanese had abandoned the bonsai charges in favor of a war of attrition, fighting from deep underground tunnel networks. Here, the Model 12 proved its worth yet again. Cave clearing became a grim specialty of the Marines. The tactic was brutal. A flamethrower team would spray the entrance, followed by a demolition charge. But often the caves were complex, with multiple turns. Marines armed with Model 12s and .45 caliber pistols were the tunnel rats of their day. They would descend into the dark, sulfur-choked caverns to ensure the enemy was neutralized in the claustrophobic confines of a limestone tunnel. The deafening roar of a 12-gauge shotgun was disorienting, but its effectiveness was absolute. Ricocheting pellets cleared corners without the Marine having to expose himself to direct fire. It was in these final bloody months that the shotgun cemented its legacy not just as a defensive tool, but as the premier weapon for digging a fanatical enemy out of the earth. The legacy of the trench broom, the Winchester Model 12, served long after the Japanese surrender. It saw action in Korea, where it was again used to stop massed infantry charges, this time by Chinese forces. It served in the early years of Vietnam, still highly prized by Marines for its reliability in the jungle. However, the Pacific Theater remained the high water mark of its combat history. It was a conflict uniquely suited to the weapon's strengths, the environment, jungle night, the enemy tactics, infiltration, bonsai, and the intensity of the combat created a perfect storm where a sporting gun, modified for war, became the most feared instrument on the battlefield. Today, the Model 12 trench gun is a collector's holy grail, a piece of steel and walnut that commands high prices and reverence. But looking at one in a museum, it is difficult to grasp the sheer violence it represents. It is not a precision instrument of modern warfare. It is a bludgeon. For the Marines who carried it, the Model 12 was more than a gun. It was a promise. A promise that when the flare popped and the shadows moved, when the screaming started and the world narrowed down to the distance of a foxhole, they would not be overrun. They would hold the line, one slam fire pump at a time.